Hola, and welcome to Vive Nutrition Radio, the first ever Spanglish podcast where you will hear interviews with the top minds in nutrition, performance, fitness, and health in both English and Spanish. Here is your host, expert registered dietitian, Andres Ayesta, on a mission to help you take your nutrition to the next level. Hope you're ready for this. Let's dive right in.
What's up, boys and girls? Welcome back to another episode of Vive Nutrition Radio. This is your host, Andres Ayesta. So excited to see your smiling faces back in the show this week. And I'm pretty pumped about this episode because I've been looking forward to get this guy on my podcast for a while. He's a pretty busy dude, and he's fortunately a person that I get to call friend. He's been a mentor to me, a guide. He's really given me the most helpful advice in my personal and professional life. And I can definitely say, and I repeated when we started the recording, he's definitely changed my life. His name is Justin Sua. Justin is the mental performance and leadership coach for the Tampa Rays, Major League Baseball team. He previously was working with the Boston Red Sox, and when they won their championship and the World Series, he's also the mental performance coach for the Cleveland Browns organizations, and he does it all. I mean, I'm telling you, Justin is a person that just, his main goal is just to literally cultivate mental toughness and really create a culture of excellence. He is one of a kind. Justin and I met in IMG Academy when I had the pleasure to work as a nutrition coach there. And he and I met in a really interesting way because we started working out together in the morning with one of our good friends, Matt Smith. And it was such a nice time and period of my life where I really changed a lot of things in my fitness and my health. And Justin was definitely a part of that. So in today's conversation, we dive deep into some of the most important principles that you need to understand to have a stronger mindset, a mindset that applies to not only to your nutrition, to your health, to your fitness, but every single aspect of your life. We went from his story and some of the things that he went through and how he got to where he's at today. We talked about his amazing smile and how he cannot wipe it off his face. And we dove deep into some really interesting applications that you can really take away from that. So if you literally listen to the entire podcast, you're going to realize that there's a ton of value being added to it. Now, bear in mind, we had some connectivity issues. Specifically, I had some connectivity issues, so I deeply apologize for that. There are some parts that, the sound is not the greatest, or some parts it's cut out. But just bear with me through the podcast because I promise you that everything else that was recorded was just pure fire. So without anything else to add, I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Justin Sua and Mental Mindset. I'll see you guys next week. Hey guys, welcome back to Vive Nutrition Radio. This is probably one of the most wanted episodes I've been wanting to record because I have the pleasure, as I introduced him earlier, to have one of my good friends. He's also become a mentor to me in the past, and he's literally changed my life, whether he knows it or not. So I'm super excited to have Justin Sua in the podcast. So my man, Justin, hermano, how are you today, man?
Mi hermano. That was quite the introduction. I did not know that. You and feelings are mutual. I'm so excited to be with you.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, you did share my life, and we're going to talk about some of those things. So Justin and I met, for you guys listening in, at IMG Academy, where we had the pleasure to work. He was the head of mental conditioning at that point there, and I was a nutrition coach. And we got to kind of meet there, and we built a really good relationship. We started working out every morning. What time is it that we were working out back then?
Well, were we the 5 o'clock club? I think we might have been the 5. And the more I tell people, I think the earlier it gets.
Yeah, it was like a 5 o'clock workout team. So me and one of my good buddies, strength and conditioning coach in Washington, Matt Smith, and I'm sure he's listening into this, we decided to create this workout group. And one of the things about Justin, and I think, if you guys could see him, he's probably smiling right now, because one of the things about Justin is that he's always freaking smiling, and it's hard to wipe that off his face. So what did you tell me? Kind of is that always have you been since you were a kid? Or that's something that kind of changed along the way?
You know what? I think it is. I think it, because, I come from Polynesian. So the Polynesian islands, like the Rock, Samoa, Tahiti, Tonga, they're a happy people. But my mom is Mexicana, so she's Mexican, and that's the Latinos. Yeah. They're a happy people, and I think having just a combination between the two, I saw my parents were just super positive, good body language, smiling, and yeah, I think that's what it is. There's no tactics or strategy. I don't really think about it much. I get that question all the time, but I'm grateful for my parents and then my blood, my heritage to kind of breathe, just kind of have optimism and positivity. It just kind of runs through my veins.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's one of the things that you're like people look at you and you're like they get that energy. So that's always kind of like exciting. So yeah, man. So why don't you tell us like a little bit what you've been up to? Because one of the things about you that it's always fascinated to me is how busy you are, but you still find the time to prioritize your family, and we'll talk about Eliana because that's awesome that she's going to be in a movie, and I saw that on Instagram. You got to tell me all the details with the freaking rock. That's awesome. But why don't you tell us a little bit about what you've been doing, and then we'll close out this kind of segment of talking about how Eliana got into this and how awesome was it go to Hawaii.
Yeah, I will. It's really interesting. So what I do for a living, my job, for those who are listening, imagine yourself performing at your absolute best. So those times when you have performed at your best, there are certain things you were doing and certain things you were not doing in order to perform at your best. And my job is to help elite athletes get there, how to identify and discover what is their sweet spot, what are their success habits, what are their traps that get in the way of their performance, and to help them along the way. And so helping people build confidence, how to stay focused under pressure, how do you bounce back after a setback. And so, yeah, I got a master's in sports psychology, was the head of medical conditioning at IMG, worked with military soldiers, wrote a couple of books, got signed with the Boston Red Sox, was amazing experience last season to win the World Series. Then the Cleveland Browns brought me on, and it was been an amazing journey. We won one game in 2016, 0 games 2017, and then we won a handful of them last season, and so that's fun to see. And then recently, just left the Boston Red Sox to join my new team, which is the Tampa Rays, which is 30 minutes from my house. I live in Florida, still close to IMG Academy, and just trying to have a podcast. But like you said, really prioritizing my family as well. I have 3 kids, and really trying to practice what I preach by setting myself up for success and being with my family as much as I can.
That's awesome. Yeah. And talking about your kids, so like your kids are rock stars, man. Like you got your son, I know he's building a business, like, selling, I call them happy socks. And then Eliana, who's an actress and just got a like very important role working with, and I think it's like the movie Hobbs and Shaw with The Rock Johnson as literally his daughter in the movie.
Yep. Yeah, it's unbelievable. And that's one of the things as parents, it's hard. I mean, it's easier for me to talk and help other people and with other parents' kids. When it's your own, it's a whole nother story because they don't listen to you like they do other people. And if my wife and I, Melissa, who you know as well, she says hello, by the way, who is basically, we just try to water our kids' ambitions. A lot of times I come from immigrant parents. And when you come to this country, there's a lot of reasons why there's a lot of roadblocks. There are obstacles that you have to overcome in life in general, but particularly as an immigrant, from language barriers to the educational factors to just not being raised in the American culture. And to see my parents thrive and succeed in spite of those things, or maybe because of those things, I got a front row seat to see it. And now being a second generation American here in the United States, having my mother born and raised here, was born and raised in California. My father moved here from the island of Samoa. But I want to instill that in my parents. My wife's parents, they're Argentinos. And so they are immigrants. They came to this country with a dream in their heart as well, and they became successful entrepreneurs. And so my wife and I were like, you know what? We want to teach our kids that you can do whatever you want. Go be a businessman. Go be an actor. Go get really good grades. And so we have 3 kids. And like you said, my daughter is going to be the Rock's daughter in his next movie. And my son with his entrepreneur sock business, he's in 7th grade. And we have another daughter, Maya, who she just wants to be the best student she can be. And we're trying to help her with that as well.
That's amazing. So, and one of the things, like, because like I see all your success and everything you've accomplished, and it's been so amazing to witness that. But you have a very interesting story, and that's something that you and I you shared with me one time, and you shared it in one. I think I remember back in IMG when we were working together with a group. Like I think of some of the staff members talking about, how you got to a point where things got pretty rough, even having 3 kids. So why don't you tell my audience a little bit about where you started and kind of what got you up until this point?
It's crazy because growing up, I always had this dream in my heart. I wanted to be a pro baseball player and then realized, okay, that didn't work out. And then I wanted to be a sports anchor on ESPN and that didn't work out. And then I wanted to be a teacher. And I was a teacher, a high school teacher for 5 years. And then I got my master's in sports psychology while I was going to school. And we had 3 kids, and all 3 kids we had a 6-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 4-year-old. Actually, they're much younger now that I think about it. They're more like 3, 2, and 1, but much younger. And basically, I decided when I was in a high school teacher, I said, you know what? There's more to this. I want to spread my wings, and I want to do something big in this world. And so, not that teaching is not. Teaching was amazing, but for me, there's something else out there but I didn't know what it was. And so I opened up, I took this jump into the dark and this crazy dream. I opened up my own consulting business as a mental skills coach. And I have a master's at the point in sports psychology. But I would go through these bouts, these mentally, like, who am I? Who am I to be a mental skills coach? Who's going to listen to me? There's so many other people who are smarter, who are better. They're better teachers. And I live in Utah. Like, no one knows who to hustle. I started to work, but it was the hard part. My wife and my 3 kids. My wife stayed at home with the kids, and so I was the sole financial provider for our family. And I always tell people, as an entrepreneur, and you know this, is that you eat what you kill, and you're like a hunter. And if I'm not killing or making business deals or getting clients, then my family's not eating. That was the scariest, most motivating thing that could ever happen to me. And so I had all these other jobs. Yes, I was teaching a little bit on the side. I was a baseball coach. I got involved in a multi-level marketing kind of a pyramid program, like just to make
I did not know
money
that.
Just to make money so that I can provide for my family so that I can go do what I love, which is this. Got to the point where I hit a really dark spot. I really, really dark. Our financial status was horrible, to the point to where I remember picking up diapers one day. My wife, Melissa, she's like, you got to get diapers for the family. I go and it gives you the update, the account balance for your checking and your savings. And it was double digits. It was something that was less than $20 combined. And now I say this now, it was one of the scariest moments of my life. And I just started crying right there in front of the ATM, feeling like I was a failure, feeling that I was letting my wife down. I was letting my kids down, that I'm not going to achieve my dream. And it was hard. And I look back and I remember thinking, there's no way I can get out of this. Like, how can I be great? But I can't even, you can't be great if you're struggling financially. And I was struggling. It was deep, dark, I don't want to say depression, but I was very, very close. And, but I just kept working. I kept producing. I kept throwing out tweets that nobody was liking. I kept throwing out posts and writing articles that no one was reading. I kept serving, waiting tables, all these things. And little by little, all of a sudden things started to happen. And then books and military and Red Sox. And here we are. Literally about almost 10 years later, completely different than what it was. And I love to think that I feel like I'm just scratching the surface. I feel like we haven't even started yet.
Absolutely, man. And it's obviously been very inspiring. And to when I heard this story from the first time, because it's definitely motivating and inspiring to others that are in a darker spot and they are in a place where like they're struggling, you know, and one of the things that I remember very clearly, like it was yesterday, when I sat in your office and you and I, and you told me about this analogy or this book that you read that had this idea of what we call you call it the Keystone Habit. And you told me, and I think I'm actually going to let you explain it, because it's actually been something that I have implemented with a lot of my clients, and making them understand how important it is to not get to be overwhelmed by everything, but just focus on one thing. So why don't you kind of tell the audience a little bit more about that, and how does that kind of help you, or did that help you, or how it helps your clients, improve their lifestyles and their mindsets?
Absolutely. So many people, when they want to make these changes to their lives, I got to change my nutrition. Am I going to do macros? I got to work out. And what time should I work out? What supplements should I take? And that's nutrition. And that's talking about that. Then we have people with fitness or baseball. It doesn't matter. But a lot of times people want to make all of these drastic changes to their behavior in hopes of becoming the best version of themselves. Great. It's human. I mean, it's natural. That's what we want to do. However, there's a book, and the book is called The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. And he conceptualizes this principle called a Keystone Habit. Now, if you imagine an arch built by stones, and there's a stone at the very top that kind of locks both sides together, that's the keystone. You take the keystone away, everything falls. And so that's the one, it's called the Keystone Habit. Now, he tells a story, and I'm many years removed from reading the book. However, here's the gist of it. There's a company called Alcoa. Now, Alcoa is the tinfoil company, or was at least at the time, that made the tinfoil that goes on Hershey's Kisses. Now, they were plummeting. They were struggling financially and about to go bankrupt. They got a new CEO, and at the press conference, they asked him, hey, what are you going to do to turn this company around? And he says, worker safety. And everyone's looking at each other like, wait, worker safety? Like, what do you mean? He goes, we are going to be the safest company in the world. And they're like, wait, what about the finances? What about this? They came up with all these, they just tried to poke holes in it. He goes, we are going to be the safest company. That's going to be the answer. People were not buying this guy. His name is Paul O'Neill. People sold their shares. They wanted to get out of the company. 10 years later, not only does he bring them out of the deficit, out of the red, but they make some ridiculous number of profit. Something like $100 million in profit. Again, don't quote me on that, but it's in the book, something ridiculous. And they asked him, how did you do it? And he said, workers' safety, focus on the health of the workers. And he explained his reasoning. He goes, when you focus on workers' safety, then people show up to work more often. You're not wasting money in paying for broken machinery. You're not slowing down production. And he says, if you take care of that one thing, it takes care of the byproduct of focusing on that one thing, takes care of and solves the problem for so many other things. And that's called a Keystone Habit. And so basically, if you're listening to this, my question to you is, what one thing in your life, if you focus and do that one thing, everything else will kind of take care of itself. And not everything, but it will align so many other things. For some people, it's waking up in the morning and working out. Just first thing more. They do that one thing that builds momentum for the rest of the day. For some people, it could be as simple. It could be a nutrition thing. It could be a spiritual thing. It could be anything. But we always talk about what's your one keystone habit, and we call it almost your anchor. If you keep doing this, no matter how bad things get, how bad the storm is around you, you're going to be able to find your way, because this is your anchor. This is your keystone habit. This is your North Star. And so that's what we talk about when we work with athletes.
Yeah, that's really powerful, because it's definitely at the point that you and I talked about this. My keystone habit became my fitness, and that's when we started working out every morning. But again, I was not focused on like, I was obviously, as a dietitian, yes, I was actually focused on what I was putting on my plate, but it was not like my area of priority. It was more like waking up in the morning and going up and working out with this awesome group of people and getting it done. And I think that for a lot of people listening in, what Justin is saying too, especially around this time, Justin, because it's the beginning of course, like the beginning of the year. And there's a lot of people that have all these amazing goals and these amazing dreams, what they want to get out of 2019. But a lot, what I'm starting to see, and you can kind of build up on this, is like people trying to get everything at once. One of the things that happens a lot of times, like, you know, the way that you mentioned that everything about the Keystone Habit resonates with me a lot because of the fact that, you know, and as we're starting a year and, you know, 2019, and we get excited about all these different things and dreams and goals that we have and we want to accomplish. But what happens to a lot of people is like they get to the end of the month and what happens is like they fall off. They feel like they failed and they just decide it's easier to go back to old habits rather than to develop newer ones. Why do you think that happens? Is it related to this Keystone Habit analogy that you're talking about, or something that kind of goes beyond that?
Yes, I think it can. It can relate to the Keystone Habit. However, there are a number of other variables that can relate to why people give up. And I think that's a very good question. Here are some things, for example, based on what I have seen. One reason people give up could be this heavily intensive focus on the results as opposed to the process. That is one of the most common reasons why people give up. Their expectations or their hunger and desire to get to a destination overrides their focus on the process, the little things, the day in and day out mundane things they have to do. And when people are so results oriented, when they begin to look and read the writing on the wall that they're not going to achieve it, or they're not going to achieve it fast enough, or or someone's achieving it faster than they are, all of a sudden their effort begins to slack. All of a sudden they begin to give up because they are so results oriented. What's the remedy for that? Focus on the process and let the results take care of themselves. Easier said than done because we live in such a results-oriented world. And so one of the things we tell our athletes is to focus on what can you control. Be careful what you measure, because what you measure will impact your stress levels and your frustration or your happiness. And so if you have a results-oriented goal, which is great. I mean, pro sports, it's all results-oriented. However, you can't just use that as the gold standard of progress. Got to take a look at other things that you can control. So that's one. People give up because they focus on the results and they don't focus on the process. Number two, people underestimate how long it's going to take and how hard it's going to be. They don't realize that if you're trying to create a new habit, you already have a default system that you have to work against. And your default system is so strong. It's natural. Here's the analogy I love to give. It's a man or a woman, whoever, a person who's in the jungle, and it takes them, there's a path, a 3-mile path that goes to the market. And it's easy to walk that path, but it's 3 miles. Let's say you wake up one day and you think, you know what? I could just carve a new path, just cut through the shrubbery, cut through the bushes to go straight to the market, and that'll get me there in a mile instead of having to walk 3 miles. Now you walk out with your machete and you start cutting the shrubbery, cutting down trees, and you realize this is hard. This is so exhausting. I might as well, it's easier to walk the 3-mile route instead of carving out the new 1-mile route. But lo and behold, if you stick with it day in and day out, at first it's going to be very hard to cut that new path. However, if you stick with it, it's more efficient, becomes easier, and that old 3-mile path you used to walk, weeds start growing over it because you're not using it anymore. Same thing with habits. People underestimate that, yes, it's going to be hard at first. It's going to be unbearable at first. But if you stick with it, it's no longer unbearable. It diminishes a little bit. Now it's just uncomfortable. But then if you stick with it, it becomes unbreakable. And so people underestimate what they're up against, how hard it's going to be and how long it's going to take. And then number three reason people give up is they just have this fixed mindset. There's research out of Stanford. Basically, they are crushed by failure. They think that when they fail that they're a failure. They don't want obstacles. They don't like feedback. They get jealous or threatened by the success of others, as opposed to the growth mindset, the complete opposite of that. They want hard things. They embrace the boredom of consistency. They invite feedback from other people. They seek it, and they're inspired by the success of others. And so those who have the fixed mindset, they tend to give up when things aren't working out the way they want it to work out. And there are so many others, but those are three just for your audience right off the bat.
Yeah, and I think you posted something the other day on Instagram, and I think that kind of goes along with this, which is, I think it was a post that you talk a little bit about, like the power of tiny gains. I think it's actually what it was called, like something about the 1% every day is going to compound into a ton more that is going to be able to be accomplished after a certain amount of time. I think it was something like 38 times or something like that. Is that right?
That's just a powerful principle, and a lot of people get tripped up over the things that are past. The things the past bad decisions they make. And here's something what happens. They'll make a bad decision, whether it be eat the wrong food, not work out, drink soda instead of water, whatever it is. Now that's not the problem. The problem happens is when you compound that mishap or mistake and think, oh, well, I already messed up, and then compound it with the next bad mistake, and then the next one, then the next one. And so the tiny little habits or tiny little decisions not only help you, but they can also hurt you. There's a powerful impact that they have, little bad decision after little bad decision after little bad decision. And so once you make that first mistake, just make that decision that your next choice, your next decision is going to be an excellent one. And you cannot underestimate the power of consistently doing the little things. It's not the big, grandiose, mundane, the huge things. It's the little, tiny, mundane things that end up having the power day in and day out.
Yeah, and a lot of people sometimes they don't look at it like from the perspective of like, because they get like, I guess like the word is like, impatient, because they don't think that those smaller things truly matter, because they just look at the bigger picture. And I think that connects a lot with what you mentioned about the focusing on the results, not, results driven kind of like mindset versus like process focused mindset. And that's the thing, the main reason. And do you see this happening, I guess, also with athletes, like not really focused? They just want to get to like the championship. They want to get to this point, and they start to forget the smaller things that really matter. Is that something you tend to see a lot with pro athletes?
Absolutely. I find myself a lot of times less as a master. I'm not a master, but a reminder. All I really do for a lot of these pro athletes, I just remind them on who they are as a person, what their values are, and remind them, but I don't tell them. I ask them, hey, what helps you get through this moment? What do you need to focus on to help you be at your best? And just asking that question, a lot of the athletes are like, oh my gosh, I've gotten off track. Yeah, I am focused too much on the stats. I am focused too much about getting to the All-Star game or making the Pro Bowl. I need to get back to my roots, get back to my Keystone habits, and focus on what I can control. I think you hit the nail on the head and helping people reconnect to the things that matter most. But you're right. People get impatient. The example I always share is that of the bamboo tree, Chinese bamboo tree. If you water a bamboo seed every day for 5 years, it's going to grow 0 inches. 0. And it can get extremely frustrating if you don't realize that that's what happens. For those 5 years, the tree actually grows underground. This incredible network of roots are growing because it knows that if you keep watering it, it's building the foundation for something great to come. If you continue to water it, it's going to shoot up 90 feet in 6 weeks. 90 feet in the 5th year. In the 5th year, 90 feet in 6 weeks. And so people might think, oh, wow, it grows 90 feet in 6 weeks. No, that was 5 years of consistent watering, even not seeing the results. That's what allowed it to shoot up. If the person would have stopped watering it because it's not growing, then yeah, the bamboo tree wouldn't have grown. Same thing with us. A lot of times people are on the verge of their breakthrough. They're on the verge of making progress, but because they don't see the progress right now, they don't see it with their own eyes, they give up and they stop doing those things that they need to be doing in order to capture the prize that they're going after.
That is powerful, man. And I heard you talk about this, which is definitely, I think, the main reason why they're just not patient enough to see it. And I think also that's what happens with a lot of the athletes, which is something I wanted to kind of like transition into, because I know you work with some like the top athletes in all kinds of strategies. And I think even know you I think I saw you even working with CrossFit game athletes, which that's another entire topic. And I'll definitely at some point in the future would love to pick your brain on this. But what is like the process that you take an athlete in general, let's say, for example, they're entering the season and they're trying to obviously get prepared and for everything from the beginning to end, like what does that look like for an athlete in any kind of sport, to get them ready mentally, which is your job?
Yeah, I think so. So first of all, it looks different, as you know, in nutrition. Just like any nutrition, it looks different for every person, and it looks different for every sport, and even the intricacies of each sport, it looks different for every position of each sport. A conversation with a quarterback is going to be different than a conversation with an offensive lineman, than a defensive back, than a linebacker. They just have a different mentality. A starting pitcher versus a closing pitcher, just a different mindset. And not only that, everyone's personalities are different. And not only that, depending on the time of the year, there is definitely a periodization approach. Things that you talk about and work on before the season are going to be different during the season. And so there's a lot of different nuances to creating something like that for an athlete. However, some very basic strategies or principles, when I sit down with an athlete, I want to know what makes them tick. So right off the bat, we want to know what are their values, what are their core beliefs, and so we dig into some of those things. I help them understand the intricacies of stress. Okay, this is what stress does to your body. We talk about the power of the mind. And then we talk about tools like visualization, tools like breathing, tools like creating routines in their life. Now, with the professional athlete, the elite athlete, they're already really, really good at what they do. They're already really good. So my job is to help uncover or bring to life or even to label awareness things they are doing to help them be successful that they possibly didn't even realize they were doing. They almost did it by default. And then to identify their stumbling blocks, those things that kind of trip them up. And not to completely just pull them out or weed them out, but just to create some awareness. And the reason I say not to pull them out, because sometimes you can't completely eliminate fear. You can't completely eliminate anger, but you can minimize it and create some tools to help them minimize it. And so it looks different for everybody. What habits they want to create. Sometimes we talk about their families and their relationships. We create, some of them write journals. Some of them we practice mindfulness meditation. And what I love about mental skills training is that it looks different for everybody. Some people don't like to visualize. Some people don't like meditation. Some people like to journal. Some people like self-talk. Some people don't. And so to find out what works best for them. However, I have this, it's almost like a salad bar of mental skills tool and techniques and strategies. I introduce them to the athletes, and then we decide if it works for them, if they want to try it, taste it a little bit, and we go from there. But I try to keep it as simple as I possibly can.
Yeah, I think that's the most important. I think the simplicity is one thing. And like you mentioned, so from what it sounds like, it's like a very complete personalized approach, because what works for maybe a quarterback, like you're saying, it may not work for, a linebacker or like the pitcher from a different baseball team compared to like football. So it sounds like there's definitely kind of like different kinds of stimuli and inputs that definitely affect people differently. And from that perspective, you just need to make sure that you're adjusting it according to what works for them. Right?
Exactly.
That's awesome, dude. Now, if we were to give, because I always like to kind of, as in the last few minutes of the podcast, I always like to give practical advice to my listeners and to people listening in. So if you were to, because I know you love, one of the things I remember about your presentations and where you actually talk to people was how you always provided like a number of steps, or here's 5 things that you need to know. There's like a couple of things that you need to do. And the one thing actually that I learn a lot from like presentational skills actually through what you told me on that. So if we can finish up like the last few minutes of the podcast by providing 5 things that everybody listening to this podcast need to know to build a stronger mindset, what would those be?
Wow. Oh, man.
I make it harder for you.
I have so many. So I will tell you this. This will probably change. If you ask me this next week, it'd probably change. But here we go. Here are the 5 as I'm thinking right now. Okay, so number 1 would be, the principle number 1 would be to do what you do on purpose with purpose. So we're going to start with that basic principle. Do on purpose with purpose. What do I mean by that? Being very deliberate about your actions. What I would suggest is when you wake up in the morning or maybe the night before, create a plan for what the perfect day is going to look like. A lot of people don't even plan their day. They don't even have an idea of what they're going to do. And so whenever you have nothing to do, a lot of times we occupy it with just procrastination tactics, surfing the internet, watching Netflix. Plan your day. Do what you do on purpose, with purpose. So there's number one. Number two, flex your optimistic muscles. It is so easy to fall into the trap of negativity. We have something called the negativity bias, where we're saying anywhere from 300 to 1,000 words to ourselves a minute, and the great majority of them are negative. Take some time to stop and to pause and to notice the good things that are happening. What's the good, even if it's small, just that little bit helps you be a little more positive. And the research shows that a positive brain performs better than a negative or neutral one. If you want to be more happy, start noticing the things that make you happy. Notice them. They're all over the place. And the corollary principle with this is gratitude. Just start counting your blessings. Start noticing the things that you're grateful for. So that's number two. Number three, I'm going to say, here's the principle. If you want better answers, start asking yourself better questions. One thing that we do a lot of times is, it's someone listening, you always hear, oh, why am I so terrible? Oh, what if I fail? What if I mess up? What if I don't get the job? What if I don't hit my goal? Our brains are amazing. If you ask that question to your brain, you know what your brain's going to do? Your brain is going to find an answer to that question. It's kind of like Siri. Your brain is a Siri. You're going to ask Siri a question, and Siri's going to dig up the internet to find that answer for you. Same thing. Our brains are more powerful than Siri. You're going to ask, oh man, why do I suck so much? Or why am I terrible? Your brain's going to go, here are all the reasons. Because of this. And you're like, and this is going to make it worse. If you want better questions, start asking yourself better questions. If you want better answers, start asking yourself better questions. Meaning, instead of asking all those negative questions, ask questions like this. How will this make me stronger? What can I control right now? What's the bright side of this situation? Who can I do right now? Better answers. Start asking better questions. Number three, surround yourself with fountains. There are fountains and there are drains. One of the best predictors of happiness is your source of connectivity, the depth of your relationships. Your fountains are people who are fountains of energy. They're fountains of hope, fountains of positivity. The drains are the people who suck out your dreams. They suck out your energy. They pop if you have any hope or dreams, they'll pop it with, and they'll be with what they call it realism. Oh, what about this? And it just sucks the life out of you. And unfortunately, sometimes we're related to these people. And that's great. We love them still. But what I'm saying is, if you have fountains in your life, search them on the internet. Keep reading Andres' stuff. Keep finding people on Instagram or on YouTube. Read their books. Fountains are all around us. How many is that? Is that 4?
That was 4. So we need one more.
Number 5, be where your feet are. It is so easy, like I said earlier, to go to the past or to go to the future. Be where your feet are. How do you do that? Slow your breathing down. Bring awareness to where you are right here, right now. If you're sitting down, notice the weight of your body sitting on the chair. In quiet moments of your life, if you're taking notes, notice the pen in your hand. Notice how your breath feels leaving your lungs and filling your lungs. Notice people around you, the sounds that you hear. People always say, hey, be present, be present. What does that mean? That literally means be right here. Pay attention. And how do you do that? Asking yourself, okay, what do I hear right now? What do I see right now? What do I feel right now? As you do that, you'll have a better connection to the here and now. And as I said in a movie, quote in a movie, when you are in the here and now, you'll be amazed on what you can do and how well you can do it.
Wow. That is absolutely powerful. And I'm going to make sure I write all this stuff down, not only for myself, but I literally want to write about this because it's like every time I work with clients and I work with athletes and I work with different kinds of people, I tell them, like, it all starts with the mindset. It all starts with the mind and how you approach your habits and your eating and everything that you do. And this is a roadmap for it. So thank you so much for that, man. Like that's pretty powerful. Awesome. Now, I always like to finish out the podcast with a little, on a lighter note and talk about, what I like to call rapid fire questions, which I totally stole this from Tim Ferriss. And every time I have a podcast, that's exactly what I say. So I'm just going to ask you maybe like a series of 4 to 5 questions. And you just need to say the first thing that comes to your mind, and then we'll wrap it up. Sound good?
Got it.
Awesome. So first question goes like this. What is your favorite workout? Go. Movement or workout
squats.
Or lift?
Squats.
Awesome. Love it. What is your favorite podcast that you like to recommend to people? And you can say your own if you want to.
I'm going to say my own. I'm going to say my own just because I want to say my own. Increase Your Impact podcast. But I love listening to people more than podcasts. I will follow a person and listen to all their stuff on all the different podcasts. I don't really listen to the same podcasts every day.
Okay. That's awesome. Now, you're big on books. So and I know this is going to be a really tough question for you to answer, but if you could pick 1 or 2 books that you could give to somebody or you can recommend to somebody on any kind of topic, what would they be?
The first one would be Legacy by James Kerr. And the second one would be The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday.
What a great book. I haven't read the first one, but I've read Ryan Holiday stuff. In fact, every morning, I don't know if I'm sure you have this book, but the Daily Stoic, I read that for the past 3 years. Every year I've read that book every single day. Like the day that goes in, because the more I read it, the more it kind of gets ingrained in my mind. It's definitely changed a lot of stuff in my life as well. So that's awesome. And the last question, which if you were stranded on an island, or a desert or whatever may be the case, and you could pick only one food to have for the rest of your life, what would that be? I know, right?
One a good one to have the rest of my life. Are you talking about to sustain my life or just I'll be okay just having it? I just love it.
That's the beauty of the question. Just whatever you had to choose. Sushi. Okay, that's good. You will be surprised at some the answers that some people have actually given me. So that people have said poke bowls, people have said lasagna, people have said mangoes. It's hilarious. That's why I like to ask it. So it's good to know that stuff. That's awesome, man. Cool, brother. So it's been amazing. Definitely. We need to do this more often because I feel like there's so much value to be added from your experience, from your history, from your knowledge and everything that you know. Now, where can people find you? Because I know you're huge on Instagram and you've been growing like crazy and your content is invaluable. But what is some of the best ways that people can reach out to you, can connect with you, can find some more of you so they can continue to learn and the growth and mindset and all these different things?
You know what, really? I've since joining the Red Sox and the Browns, I've actually pared down. I took down my website. I took down my blogs. Just because obviously it's just so busy. However, I thought, I still want to provide value. And so I just really one place, Instagram. They could DM me. They could my email's there. If you at Justin Sua, and then I'm on Twitter as well. On Twitter, Instagram, and Twitter. If you're there, you'll find me. I'm pretty active on both of those.
Yeah, and just for you guys listening in, Justin is always posting really informational, really good stuff. Some really great videos with a lot of value to it, and a really important lessons. And his tweets are also pretty powerful. So make sure you give him a follow, so you can continue to learn on this. And of course, his podcast, Increase Your Impact, that is one thing you need to listen because it's only micro podcasts, 5 to 10 minutes, correct? Is that you're still doing
That's it.
Yeah, that's it. 5 to 10 minutes of pure power that you can listen to it in the morning. So make sure you give him a subscribe on iTunes and make sure you kind of find him on there. So Justin, my man, it's always been a pleasure. Love talking to you, man. Let's do this again soon. Thank you so much. I cannot be more grateful for your time here today.
Thank you, my brother. Like I said earlier, feelings are mutual and then so excited for everything you're doing.
You have been listening to Viva Nutrition Radio. Couple things before you take off. If you enjoyed this episode, please, I would love to get your feedback. So feel free to drop down a review and I will be forever grateful. Also, if you like this podcast, make sure you hit the subscribe button. We have it on iTunes, Spotify, or Google Play. And lastly, if you would like to receive a freebie from me, make sure you sign up for our newsletter at www.vive-nutrition.com. See you guys in the next episode. Ciao, ciao.